the meeting. So if I can just say welcome to any residents that are watching on the live stream. It should be a relatively quiet meeting this evening. One can never tell. We've got one planning matter, which is the materials that are being used at 1 Wolverton Road. And we've got 3 resolutions. One is whether we can take any meaningful actions on Milton Keynes Council's winter plan, which is part of the cost of living crisis, which we'll talk about. One which I would ask everyone to pay particular attention to, but we have elections next year, Parish Council elections. And there is a proposed, an agenda item on whether we should run an open day for residents who might be considering becoming a parish councillor. So do stay tuned if you are, you might be prepared to consider that. And then the third resolution, I think, will be relatively quick. It's a formal consultation on an extension of Milton Keynes' dog fouling policy for another 3 years. There is a part 2 to the meeting, which is where we will have to switch the live stream off. And we are going to cover, first of all, some legal matters to do with basically the transfer of the sports ground to the Parish Council, and some legal advice we've received on that. And the other 2 items are actually concerned with formulating complaints against Milton Keynes Council. One for the lack of enforcement, certainly on one particular issue, but that may be broadened, and the other in relation to their actions, or perhaps one should say lack of actions, on Carrington Grove. And you might notice that that's not Carrington Close, because that's yet another thing that they messed up. They got the name wrong. So with that ado, we'll now start the open forum. And I know Kevin wants to say some words to start.
Just notice what you said about Carrington Grove. Yeah.
You don't need any more on the street lights, no. And Leo, yes. I can guess what you're going to say, but here we go.
I've circulated an email yesterday to all parish councillors and MKCC councillors. It says, does anybody want to ask me any questions about that?
Leah, all I would say, and I'm pretty cross about this, we had a meeting, that is to say the 3 ward councillors, and I do thank them very much for turning out last Thursday. Kay, Steve and myself attended a meeting with Milton Keynes Council Planning and Legal. They'd sent us a paper beforehand, which they marked as confidential. And it has gone just to parish and ward councillors, and we had to stand by that commitment, really. In fact, they really only wanted it to go to those councillors who were attending the meeting, but we actually didn't know at that point, and we had to share it and then decide who went to the meeting. I mean, to be honest, I don't really know why it was so confidential, because there wasn't very much there that we didn't know already. Fundamentally, you know, they accept that there is a breach of the S106 agreement, which is really the only legal document. And the issue is whether they're going to enforce it or not. And because of the shortage of affordable housing generally in the borough, they're minded not to enforce. In practice, it's almost certainly too late now, because we know that Kay has spoken to the builders and 7 are occupied. And I think that is distinct from the 12 shared ownership, which have also had contracts entered into. So that's 19 out of the 30. And Steve has spoken to a prospective tenant who's taking up one of the houses at the bottom, which isn't actually finished yet. So if they're letting those, the likelihood is that they've now let the whole lot.
Yeah, she has had the offer.
Yeah, so, which is just quite appalling. And I can't go into the details of it, but one of the items that we'll consider in part 2 is first of all a response to the paper that Milton Keynes Council sent us, and secondly a proposed email that I will send again. I think it's the third or fourth I will have sent to Michael Bracey, the Chief Executive. I think they are fairly excoriating, and we will then have to decide how we're going to take this further by way of complaint. I mean, it's asking him in the last ditch to try one last time if any houses have not yet been allocated to stop their application, which is actually something that Councillor Bowyer raised in the meeting on Thursday and asked them to stop. But we've had no response, which is pretty much par for the course in this whole business.
So MKC have not confirmed what they're going to do about it at the moment.
No, they wrote this very long paper, the first part of which was quite irrelevant. It was all to do with the enforcement of discharge of conditions, yes, which is, frankly, I mean, they performed appallingly or non-performed appallingly, but it's closed, it's done. So why they felt the need to put that in, and the rest of it is just, I suppose they're trying to keep confidential of some of the correspondence that they had with Stonewater and one or two things like that. But I hope I've not said too much.
No, I mean, but essentially that.
Yeah, George.
Just to comment, Leo, I thought you said you'd sent it to us. Neither of us still received it.
Oh, you didn't receive it?
Well, none of us, sorry, Robert.
I did. I copied it to all councillors.
To ward councillors.
Yeah, by email.
Well, I mean, if I can say, Leo, what you have said is identical to what I have said.
I did. Yes.
I mean, it really is. You know. I know. I just was so busy writing stuff.
It's been going on so long. Sometimes you have to look back at what the case is.
Yeah. I mean, I have got a key dates document, which you know, says the first time we raised this was in August. I think it's August 2019 when Councillor Andrew Geary and Steve and I raised it with them. I mean, it's just quite an appalling dereliction of duty, really.
You know, we've got MKCC planning now, they're MKC planning, but it is a new name, but it's the same old appalling service, basically, isn't it?
It is.
People who, and this applies to the minor planning issues at present as well. They look for every reason to do nothing rather than the reasons to do what they should be doing. And this is a systemic problem. It's not just this case or one function. It goes right up to the top of the council.
Yeah. I mean,
why I think you've got, why I made the suggestion that you get other councils on board, because if this SOS 106 is not challenged, it not only affects this parish council, potentially it has serious consequences for all other.
I mean, I've made the point in my notes. I've done it before, but I'm remaking the point to Michael Bracey that the bringing forward of land in neighbourhood plans by parishes depends on a level of trust between the parish and Milton Keynes Council, that they will follow whatever is put in the neighbourhood plan, and that they will follow their own planning policies. And if you can't rely on that, then you know it's why would you bring land forward? It's because you have absolutely no idea what they're going to do with it. And just to confirm, we took advice from our solicitor as well as Headley, who the Parish Council recommended, who said, which we passed almost immediately on to Milton Keynes Council. We've had other advice from not quite as formal as advice, but basically from NALC, and we've had it from two planning consultants, one of whom is associated with BALC. And then I came across because Stonewater are disputing, and I think this was before we got here, I'll come to in a moment, Steve, that the case that they lost in 2021 against Weald District Council, they're disputing that set a precedent. And I then came across a legal note prepared by Town Legal, which said basically they absolutely lost that case, and it required them to stick precisely to the percentage of affordable housing specified in an S106 agreement. So I mean, it is just.
I read the documents again the other day, and it's absolutely clear. There are only two definitions in the documents that are of importance in this. One is defines affordable housing, and it says it's 30%. The second category is market dwellings. It doesn't define the percentage, but it doesn't need to, because it's the rest of the 100%.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and we've made this point.
If this went to any competent legal situation, that would be the result of it.
We did make that point very forth for the meeting.
I mean, we probably will discuss in part two whether there's any legal redress that we can take, but certainly I think we'll probably go for a complaint. It's difficult to see what legal redress we would have, but we might take advice on it. Steve, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we've got a position here where our parishioners deserve to know what Milton Keynes Council have done, and we really ought to be pressing them for what can we release to the parishioners, given that they're actually making complaints to councillors. In some cases, they're criticising parish councillors, which is unfair, because all of the problem is at Milton Keynes Council. So we really need to show our parishioners.
Yes, I mean, in the comments on their document, I have actually asked for an unredacted version so that we can, or redacted version actually, so that we can show. Yeah.
One of the things that MKCC like do all the time is the clear legal privilege is confidential. Whether there's any real basis for that is dubious.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
Just a quick point. Leah, I'd like to put your mind at rest that we did actually challenge, very much so, about Milton Keynes' behaviour, if you like, throughout this. Their lack of communication, the fact that they seem very happy to sit on their hands and do absolutely nothing. Were they happy about the way that Stonewater were behaving? So we did challenge that, I promise you, in quite forthright terms. So we didn't just sit and go, yeah.
I appreciate you come up here, to talk about this, Leo, but I mean, honestly.
This is, and I've dealt with quite a few of these in my professional career, and one major one that you were of recently, where you get a legal standoff, where you've got a good case, but the other side just says, blanks it, and says, we're not going to do anything. You've really got to be prepared for that and what you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that although Milton Keynes Council do have a power to act, they don't have a duty to act.
No, it's not a duty. It's not a statutory duty.
But I do think that there is an obligation, both under the Nolan principles of transparency, and indeed under the working together, which is the MKCC Parishes protocol, that they need to be transparent and open about their decision making. And actually, as I pointed out in the meeting, them not taking action is effectively taking action, because it allows it to proceed and become 100% affordable by the very fact that they're not taking any action. So I think they have made a decision, and the S106 agreement was clear that any action should be taken, or it would only be varied if it went to DCC. And of course, I would expect if it did go to DCC that they probably would agree for it to be 100%, but at least we would have had our shout in public forum to argue for that. And secondly, that there is a dispute resolution procedure in the S106, neither of which were followed by Milton Keynes Council. And again, just to conclude this, one of the questions that I did ask the head of planning, was I said, was he aware of any other major development in Milton Keynes since the 2005 local plan was first built that had 100% affordable housing? And
Well, it's contrary to their policies, in fact, anyways.
well, it is now. Actually, it didn't used to be until Plan MK came in. But anyway, the answer is still no. Well, they weren't aware.
What would you hope for now? Bearing in mind you said, oh, they're all moved into all the contracts
Yeah.
side. What do you hope for?
Well, I mean, I think actually there are two things that I do hope for. First of all, is to make a complaint with sufficient force that they do make some changes. And I actually think that it is possible that their failure to act might, I'm going to say this very carefully to avoid, might constitute negligence. Okay, anyway, we'll see how that goes. The second thing is rather a particular point. The parish council couldn't act because we weren't a party to the S106 agreement. It was between Milton Keynes Council and the developer. I asked some months ago, and I said, this is part of the reason, you know, to which I got a response from the head of planning. Parish councils cannot be part of an S106 agreement unless they own some of the land that's being put forward. That is just untrue, or shall I say incorrect, is probably the better way. We know that Castlethorpe Parish Council was party to the Thrupp Close S106 agreement. And I checked with Neil Homer, who's one of the planning consultants, the one we used on neighbourhood plan. I said, is this the case? And he said, no, he said, I've just done one in Princes Risborough. So I would like to see, and I'm looking here because I may want some support from ward councillors on this, but, and actually not, when I say ward council, not just yourselves, perhaps, you know, the opposition, if that's the phrase. The parish council should be allowed to be party, in fact, should normally be allowed to be party to the S106. They're nearly always a beneficiary of the S106 through the funding that they get for the necessary local improvements. That would allow us legally to take action, because I think the chances of winning on this are probably in the very high 90%, given the weight of legal and planning professional opinion on this. And I think we would have felt justified in using precept money to have pursued this, had we been able to do so in time. George?
So would you be suggesting, Bill, that you would want Castlethorpe Parish Council to be a party to every single Section 106 agreement that takes place? Because obviously you're not going to know which ones might be a problem until they actually happen. So.
No, yeah, I mean, remember, S106 is only applied to major developments.
Yeah.
There are very few in Castlethorpe, but I would say, yes, that everyone that in Castlethorpe we would be a party to, and I would expect if you went out to Wavendon, the Wavendon Parish Council, whatever they're called, Wolverton Community Council, whatever, that they would be party to any S106s within their parish.
Yeah. Chair, you actually stole my thunder, well, not the way, because the last point you made was the point I was going to make. But go further than that and say, we have a network of councils, parish councils, all in the Bucks area, all in the Milton Keynes area, and we should publicise this as much as we can to say, look, you know, if you've got people bringing land forward, do not assume that it's going to be used in the way that you think it might be. I would go further and say, if we could get that message across, to say that consideration ought to be given to developments with a 106 agreement, that a deposit is placed approximately a third of the amount of the 106 as a declaration of good faith. You said yourself. We do work on trust. Well, we work on trust with Stonewater, and look what's happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, just on the final, I mean, we're really talking about the affordable housing potential, and I think we must stop.
Yes,
but again, for residents in particular, because parish councillors do know this, I'm not sure if ward councillors were copied, But Stonewater have now informed the S106 planning obligations officer that they want to pay all of the S106 amounts in a single tranche pretty much now. I mean, I think this is making a virtue out of almost necessity, because the first tranche, which would be 50% payable on 30% occupancy, they must be pretty much at 30% occupancy now, so it is due, unless they were going to go and dispute it. And frankly, the second 50% will become due very shortly, so they've either got to do twice the work to process this or just do it in once. But that does mean there's quite a lot of money. I've already written to the school, the first school, by the way, and again, we may need ward councillor support on this at some point. They've got a lot of money coming to them. I mean, they've got, I think, £385,000 to potentially make an expansion in the school, which is what the previous headmistress wanted to do. It's for education, so potentially could be grabbed by a secondary school. At the time, the planning obligations officer, Jonathan Robinson, said that he was using other S106s to improve, I think it was Stantonbury or what's the school, Radcliffe, and wouldn't need this money, so it was all intended to come here. And I've told them to get in as quickly as they can and speak to Sharon Price and try and lodge their claim to that money and to think about how they want to do it.
Is there a reason for trusting that they will come up with the financial S106 part when they haven't come up with the housing part?
They've said that, just.
They've just said that they will.
Yeah, we made that point very forcibly. We made the point that you must make sure that they don't renege on the whole agreement, having reneged on half of it.
Yeah. They applied to stand down the financial part of it in August of last year, and were formally told by Milton Keynes Council we had to go through a revalidation procedure, because you're only allowed to claim this money if it's necessary to make the development viable. We put in our claims and included the surgery and the school, and actually the burial grounds as well. There's some money in there for that. Yeah, basically that money's payable.
Signed off.
Yeah. Okay, look, I think we ought to move on unless Tony.
And some of the people haven't seen this email. I made a suggestion in it that change is only going to occur in this case if it comes from Bracing, and that an idea would be to get all the borough, all the town and parish councils in the borough up to date on what's happening on this, and get a joint letter together with them, telling Bracing that we don't like this, that it's not performed well, etc.
Yeah, I mean, two points. The first is we were getting no action from the head of planning, so I escalated to Michael Bracey. He delegated it to the director of planning, who in turn then passed it back to the head of planning. All right? So we just literally just went back. The second thing is,
the only place you go is to the top, isn't it?
The second thing is that you do need to know that a lot of the parishes in Milton Keynes, particularly those in the city, don't actually have very many planning issues. I think that's true from, I know George, you sit on planning on DCC, but I mean, when I talk about planning in forums where there are other parishes, a lot of them say, well, we don't really come. I mean, Newport Pagnell does, of course, and one or two of the others, but I mean, by and large, because they're already developed.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I think we ought to.
Just before the Facebook live stream had kept crashing, so I've given that directed people to YouTube.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
I also raised the issue of we're looking at legalistic ways to break out of this. All of them is a judicial review.
Yeah, we'll consider that in our part two. I mean, there's a lot of potential money involved in doing that.
Recently, as EBRI.
Yeah.
The first step is to make sure you've got a case.
Yeah.
And that isn't particularly expensive to do.
Yeah, well, we will consider that. I mean, again, Russell has put in a lot of FOI requests for a lot of this, and we need to get that back, and then we'll start
This has been
constructing.
going on for 3 years.
Yeah.
What is going to bring it to an end?
Oh, well, what will bring it to an end is the place will be occupied. Right, I'm going to stop this now because, Tony, did you have anything you wanted to raise?
I'll talk to you on the phone.
All right. Okay, right. In that case, we will now move into the Parish Council meeting itself. Apologies for absence from Darren, who's actually on the Zoom screen, but he's got childcare issues which are preventing that, and from Ian Markham by way of work. He won't be this evening. He's got various things that he's got to deal with. So now moving on to the minutes of the 3rd of October. Are there any matters of accuracy in those minutes?
Declarations of interest.
Oh,
Including
thank you,
myself.
Clark.
Including
Yes,
myself.
including myself. Declaration of interest. I've got a payment due to me, so I have to declare an interest in the financial schedule. Declaration of interest. Yeah. Agreeing the minutes then of the 10th of October, 3rd of October, an extraordinary meeting of the 10th of October. Are we happy with all of those? So got proposed that. I need a seconder, which is Dave, and all in favour, yes. Receive reports now. The clerk's report. So Steve has had a very bad outage with GigaClear, which I think is worth mentioning. Over 2 weeks without service. GigaClear are now at about 85% of availability of connectivity in the village. I hope this is teething problems and it will settle down, but it's really a dreadful experience. Are there any other matters? Could you just expand on number 4, this going to you and Darling, because I've written to Leo Hawkes about
Yeah,
this.
I noticed that. I had opportunity. I was in a workshop with you and Darling the other day, and I asked him about this is about the planting trees near the scheduled ancient monument where the roots would incurse into the sacred ground and maybe disturb I don't know, a fossil or something. And he said that he would actually give us a steer, and then after I'd spoken to him, I sort of feel I'd had the same conversation with Leo Hawkes. So essentially, we're asking, what we've asked to do is we've asked to plant trees in Govis Field, which is adjacent to what is defined as scheduled ancient monument, being part of the fish ponds. And the owners have said, yeah, that's fine, but what about roots that are incursing into the scheduled ancient monument ground underneath? And so essentially we're taking a steer from Milton Keynes Council.
That just believes just how difficult it is to get.
It is, it really is. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, I've told Leo Hawkes, no, not Leo Hawkes, I've told Ewan at Milton Keynes Council that if the easy way is just to leave about 2 or 3 trees out, then we'll do that, and we'll just plant the ones that are a reasonable space away.
Just plant them, don't sell anyone.
Well, that would be the easiest way to do it.
Ewan's pretty sound. He's
Yes,
given good advice in the past, so. And I have a vested interest because Dave and I will end up in the archaeologists.
Oh, no, we can't afford to have archaeologists there.
Okay. Anything else on this?
Well, it's 9 and 16 road things in the village centre. I thought Milton Keynes Council had said they had a supply of the gold brass.
I did, and for residents, this is to do with the fact that I call it gold because it doesn't glisten, the gold tarmac in the village centre has been replaced by black, where Anglian Water and Gigaclear have dug it up. And we've been pressing Milton Keynes Council to get them to do it in a matching material. Yes, Naveed did come back to me on this this supply, and it turns out it's not the case. He did have to overbuy on the tarmac, but it was apparently hot tarmac, and basically it solidified when it got cold, so he had to dispose of it. Okay, because I was going to try and get someone like Ian or Luke to store it at their farm if necessary. But
Right, if that's the case and they can't get it, then it would make more sense to have it the whole lot tarmacked again when they do the speed bump and the whole thing, so that it's all one car.
Well, they are trying to source it themselves now from their suppliers, so I think they'll do that.
If Gigaclear and Anglian Water can't find it, I doubt very much whether the council
Yeah.
will.
But Milton Keynes Council won't re-tarmac the village centre because that tarmac is actually in good condition. They will only do it where it's in poor condition, which is what we've and Steve has written today, in fact, about the road between here and the triangle.
Number 16, where the speed hump came out, that's
Yeah.
not in very good condition.
No, that is
Yeah.
nearly. Did I say a year when I found the email?
I think you said 17 months or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a fair time.
It's over a year that's been out, so we need to chase that one up. This is where a speed hump on just outside here disintegrated from the heavy lorries that were going over it, and compounded really by a bit of subsidence in the road as well. If you notice, the road is sinking. They removed it, but they haven't put it back yet, and we're chasing to get them to do that. But I think as part of doing that, they need to address the subsidence and get the road service level again. And that's obviously a more expensive job. So we're trying to get that onto their radar.
Pity you don't live in Hounslow, isn't it? About 20 a week, don't you?
Well, yes. Unfortunately, you do have to take 400 houses in order to get that. Yeah.
They've got, we talk speed bumps there.
Oh,
I literally don't understand.
All about, isn't it?
Yeah, I honestly don't understand why we've been waiting for a speed bump nearly outside the shop for so long, yet they can sling in 20 speed bumps.
Because it's different funding. That was S106. That was an S106 commitment on the builder when they built the estate. So the builders paid for that, not Milton Keynes Council.
We're going to have to do a lot of them again because they're too high.
Yeah.
They are.
They're very efficient.
No, that's ward councillors. Are you getting complaints about those speed humps?
Yeah.
I should imagine there are cars.
They're taking them out.
Without boxing in.
I was in Hounslow this week, and the number one complaint was the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was from Hounslow residents.
Yeah. I mean,
Sure, wasn't fireworks.
No, it was the helmet.
yeah. I mean, those humps are really for use in a 20-mile-an-hour area.
Yeah.
They're so steep.
They are getting changed.
They are getting changed.
Yeah,
They are.
Oh, yeah.
They came out and inspected them and found that they weren't actually.
They were too high.
They were too high, weren't
They were incredible.
Yeah.
The Parish Council wasn't happy at the height when they last played their meeting. We only want one.
Right. Okay. Anything
well-
else on these sections?
Can I just want to make one point, Chair, about item number 6. We did get a quote through to actually install the springer at Thrupp Close play area, and also a trampoline, a static trampoline. The trampoline is very expensive, but I've put the actual quote on the shared drive.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I'll put it on the next agenda if we.
Came to about £10,000.
It did, but I think about 8,000 of that was for the trampoline. But again, Milton Keynes Council, Paul Van Gate does not responding to my emails at all.
Yeah. Why don't you try Sharon Price?
I might do now. I've got a name.
Yeah. Because it may be. I've got a feeling that Paul Van Gate has gone on to something else.
But he should. He's still got the email address, so he should reply and tell me.
Yeah.
At least.
Working together, staying in communication.
Useless.
Together we will.
Okay.
While we're on about that, somebody says, can we have a Christmas tree in the triangle this year? We're talking about trees.
Oh, then monkey puzzles.
Yeah. Right, let's move on then. Ward councillors, any updates, reports, news from anybody? No? Right. Thank you. Right, moving then on to 5.1, which is planning applications. There's, just as I mentioned in the introduction, a discharge of conditions for 1 Wolverton Road. Basically, that is a number of, or a description of the materials that they want to use. I had hoped Ian would be here, because obviously it's next to his mum's old house, and I wanted to see whether they were matching. Now, are there any comments from parish councillors on this?
No, I just hope they do match.
I thought we asked for it to match.
Well, we did, but I don't know whether these do or not.
Oh, I see.
Unfortunately, I've been so tied up with this
Yeah.
Carrington Close stuff,
Yes.
Grove stuff,
Grove.
that I just haven't had even a chance to get out. I was going to ask Ian. I did speak to him about it when he rang to give his apologies, but obviously I can't describe that over the phone. So, Steve, the form is that we can say that the parish council resolved that the materials should match
Yes.
1 Wolverton, the existing property, because it's meant to be, do they call it a twin? Anyway, it's meant to be something that's matching, and that we will check and respond on that basis, if that's all right. And it will probably be Steve, me, possibly a bit of Ian Russell if he wants to. You're welcome if you want to come and look at that. We'll go and stand opposite. And,
Really busy at work.
yeah, it's fair enough. All right then. So is that okay?
That's
Steve? Right. Any questions on section 6, which are previous planning application?
6.2, there was a post on the Cosgrove Facebook page with a notice on a lamppost from Milton Keynes Council, asking for responses by November the 10th.
Yep.
But this was first launched way back in July sometime.
There's actually a bit in the clerk's report about it, Russell. Effectively, for some reason, Milton Keynes Council have asked Cosgrove for their thoughts when we've had applications to bring in static caravans in the past. The approved route is through Cosgrove, but that's a nonsensical route because they won't go over the bridge. Similarly, if they come through Castlethorpe, they have to go over the bridge with a 5-ton gross vehicle weight limit. Essentially, there is no answer. But Milton Keynes Council have asked Cosgrove for some reason for their thoughts, and they're of course going to say we don't want them coming through our urge.
Have a shame not to
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the short answer.
Parish Council are also objecting to it as well because they felt it was always going through.
Yeah.
Well, that is basically Cosgrove's Park problem, isn't it, to solve?
Yeah.
They may have to bring in smaller units or something like that. Anyway.
They don't pay to go, they pay to go to the Bristol Castle, they go to Cosgrove for nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I keep raising it with Network Rail that they've got these units that are probably about 30 tons in total, going over a bridge that Network Rail have imposed a 5-ton gross vehicle weight limit on.
Darren, is there any
Darren
update?
has as well.
Yeah, Darren, is there any update from you on the weight limit on that bridge for the Cosgrove Park mobile park home deliveries?
I mean, I've told Network Rail that if there's a problem, then we'll make sure that we tell everyone that.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, Darren.
Sorry. Yeah, I've kept Steve updated. I forwarded you the emails, Bill, as well. So I've got a couple of names of people I've been working with. A gentleman called Kemmel, and then there's the contact Steve went to as well. And I forwarded. I've had some back and forth with them, so I forwarded the emails across.
Okay.
They are very aware of what's going on with it. I don't know if you've seen.
So, I mean, Darren, if I stop you, because I don't think anyone else can hear you really.
Tell them chat.
Yeah, I mean, you could use chat, but I mean, I think what you're saying is that you've sent emails to the appropriate parts of Network Rail, and you're happy to have those circulated around the parish councillors. Then that's it, is it, Darren?
Yes, and I've had some responses.
Okay.
You can read all the mails when you see them.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
could you get me a copy of those responses, Darren? Because I've had no responses and I'm on the verge of writing to the CLO.
Yeah, I did copy you in, Steve, so I don't know why you haven't.
Sorry, mate, I didn't see it. I'll have a look.
Okay. I know.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Darren. Kevin, this is actually the parish council meeting, but is it a very quick comment?
Just a reminder, at the last meeting, wasn't there somebody here who said, or it was something to do with deliveries to the Carrington Grove, and he was told that he was allowed to take lorries off very highway over there to deliver.
No, Carrington Grove stopped short of that. It's when you go further down
So
the.
was someone saying that he
No.
was delivering them?
No, Network Rail have got a 5-ton weight limit on that
Yeah.
bridge. Yeah. Okay, let's move on then. So in that case, we need to formally propose a public excluded part 2 of the meeting. Can I have yeah, votes, yeah, other votes, yeah, we'll all agree, yeah. Right. Now, 7.2 is to consider any actions arising from the MKCC cost of living winter plan. Now, we looked at this, and I think, I mean, I suggested there were 3 things that we could consider. The first was making the village hall available as a warm place when it is not in use by preschool or other booked activities. All right, I'll just, there are some issues around that, of course. The second was about making meals available during the school holidays to children who get free school meals. And the third was really a whole series of support measures, which I think fundamentally are financial support measures, which, to be frank, I'll try and prejudge as saying that, you know, we're not in a position to do that, but we could publicise them so that Milton Keynes Council could administer them. You know, there are things like financial support for people in need and so on. Now, turning back to the first 2 items, making the hall available, and I saw that there was exchange of emails between some of us basically saying, yeah, that would be a good idea. It would have to be supervised, so that does mean someone would actually have to be here.
Yeah, it does have a problem that it would only be available between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Every day, except for one Wednesday where we have the tea community on alternate Wednesdays, which of course everybody can come to. But apart from that, it is booked every day between up to 3 o'clock and after 6 o'clock.
I mean, I would say that community, which is you know, a free option to come here in the warm and actually also have free tea and cake, which is provided by, you know, a number of volunteers who really greatly appreciate their time and their work in making some of the cakes.
Some of the best cakes in the
They are some of the best cakes, and I do encourage anyone watching to come along. And there is one this coming Wednesday. But I would say the numbers there have, pre-COVID, just before we did, they did get up to about 40. But since COVID, since we restarted them a couple of months ago, and in fairness, that was in the very warm weather and in the school holidays, the numbers were around about 20, I think. And I think the demand for a warm place might be indicated by whether people actually come along to the communities. And if that were to be good, then we could consider perhaps expanding it. I don't think the lady would make cakes every day, but we might be able to have cups of tea or something. But again, it would need a volunteer to be here to do that, which is, again, no small commitment.
But Chair, just so I understand that, we'd be opening from 3 to 6 for people to do what?
Just sit here and be
Just
warm.
sit here.
Who's saying for that piano?
But yeah, I think we'll give more thought to that, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I would agree. I mean, if we were in a position to, you know, have somebody here that in those hours who was, for example, serving tea, and then people could just socialise. And we've even got a license that we can play radio or something like that if we wanted.
Background music.
But you know, I kind of struggle to think what else we could do, to be honest.
How about asking people what, if we had this grant, what they would like?
Oh, no, there is no grant.
There's no grant, so that's.
What was the payment thing?
No, there's a fair chunk of money which is available, but
Yeah.
that's usually in that third category,
Yeah.
which is hardship funds,
Yes.
which
Oh,
would be
right.
administered by Milton
Sorry,
Keynes Council.
misunderstood. Okay.
And they have put aside quite, I think it's 280,000. That's quite a lot of money.
We only have two venues really, the village hall and there's the cricket pavilion, and that is extremely cold.
Yeah,
Even in the summer. So.
Yeah,
that's not even considered.
All right.
Maybe, I don't know when the church, the extensions of the church are going to be finished.
Well,
but that could be another alternative, maybe.
It could be, yeah. But I think the church would have to decide on that. I think it's quite a long job because I have no special knowledge.
But they've booked the village hall until the end of the year anyway for the services. So they look like they will be back in the church
Yes.
in January.
Well, I mean, we could put, sorry, you're associated with the church, aren't you?
Only very, very minimally. I was just, other than that, you said, what could they do here? WI sometimes have speakers come along, just somebody who does their own gardening, somebody who does.
Well, yeah, Kevin, I mean, the point is, I mean, I don't think we'd object to any kind of organisation or, you know, speaking or something, anything like that. But someone's got to organise it,
Yeah.
you know, and that's actually where all the work goes. Yeah. Anyway, look, I think perhaps we could think of something to put on Facebook and just see if there is an appetite for it. You know, who would want to come along, and if there is a, you know, sensible number of people, then we could consider doing it. But we would need a volunteer as well to do it, you know, to be here.
See, that's the problem. It's going to be always the same same.
Yeah, same people.
Because I mean, I couldn't possibly do anything like
No,
that.
no,
because
well, I
work
don't think,
full-time. Darren can't
honestly,
do
I
it.
don't think
He works
I
full-time.
could. You know, I'm.
The other thing too, if we're going down that road, we ought to be sensible about that and cut the ball into the third. Because it's easier here, a third of the hall than it's the entire hall.
Yeah.
And if we're going to advertise that you want to come to keep warm, then perhaps we should just shut that bit off. Got two radiators in it, and that's your warmth.
Yeah.
Because paying for this is not like you have to go on.
Well, you're paying for it anyway, I think, but yeah, because it's heated for preschool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
look, let's not get into detail.
Yeah.
We'll try and see if there is an appetite, but it would have to go not only for people to come here, but also to see if there's people who volunteer to run it. And then the question of, you know, giving free meals to children who don't qualify, again, I just don't know who would do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So let's
Do you-
give free
do you-
meals when they're not at school.
There is some grants available from the council for doing that. You do have to have someone who can cook the
They do.
meals.
exactly,
Could
yeah.
they- So that they can't give them an allotted amount of money to go and get food
Right.
instead.
I mean, the other point I would, it is very difficult
Yeah.
to know which children are on free school meals. You know, there aren't or weren't very many, like there was one at one stage in our local school, but of course there could be older children who are on free school meals.
I was.
Well, you're not getting one, Steve. Not unless you cook it. You know, and that of course is very, very private information.
Well,
You
there's
can't
people
start
private.
handing that out.
There's some very proud people that want that though.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry, that door is being very, it's the back door just blowing in the wind. It's,
Yes.
yeah.
When was the answer?
I suggest we put this in the too hard category. I mean, I just don't know how we could do
Well, it all depends on volunteers, doesn't it?
it. Yeah.
And we haven't got any volunteers, have we?
Well, we haven't asked for any, in
No.
fairness. I mean, we could ask. All right, well, I tell you what, we'll put something on Facebook covering both those categories and see if anyone is prepared to do that, and whether there is an appetite.
Maybe volunteers want to save their heating bills at home, would rather come to the village hall, because they could bring children, I mean, you could have children.
All right. Let's do that. We'll see what we can do. I think, you know, Barkers is willing in the sense of the parish council, but I think there's more to it than that. All right. Moving on then, to consider holding a Become a Parish Councillor Open Day. Can I tell you a slightly funny story at my own expense, which is I was giving a presentation at Wolverton Community Council to a group of planners who were coming to the area, and I gave my presentation, and then someone from Wolverton Parish Council, actually the clerk there, Steve McNay, was giving his talk, and at one stage he was saying, you know, what a wonderfully diverse set of councillors Wolverton Community Council had, both in terms of age and ethnicity and indeed sex, of course, their leader and chair of both women. And he said, and that's really something to be proud of, because it's quite different from most parish councils. Most parish councils are just stale, male and pale. And he turned around and he said, like Phil here.
Steve wouldn't say that.
I think he kind of choked when he realised quite what he said. But anyway, so I think, you know, I'm prepared to health being okay, would stand for another term next time round in May. But, you know, I don't know if everyone is. And, you know, we could genuinely do with, you know, more, with the exception of Darren and Kay, perhaps some younger councillors as well.
Chair, could I add to that also, and I haven't quite decided what I want to do yet, whether I want to remain being clerk or whether I want to apply to be a parish councillor. So can we include clerking as well in that? Because if somebody will take over the clerking, I think I'd feel happier about applying to be a parish councillor.
Yeah, okay.
So if we could include parish councillor and parish clerk.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the idea was to have an open day, and we'll do that for councillors and clerk. Now, Milton Keynes Council is doing something similar, but of course it will be at the civic offices, and it will be a bigger event, and people may not want to travel so much, but if we can try and book, I would suggest a Saturday in February for doing this. Yeah, and we'll,
Depending on football match.
depending on
Morning, Russell.
We'll make sure it's when Luton are away.
Oh, fair enough.
right.
I go to away matches.
When don't drop.
Okay, let's do that. Right, moving on then, 7.4 is to comment on the Milton Keynes proposal to extend the current dog fouling public space protection order. And for residents, basically, there are restrictions on picking up after dogs in any space within the borough of Milton Keynes to which the public have access. So certainly that would cover in Castlethorpe, it would include Castlefield, and indeed the fields around the village and footpaths and so on, where you are not meant to hang the little bags on trees and hedges. But anyway, there's a fixed penalty of £100, and they're proposing, this is a public space protection order that already exists, and the proposal is to extend it for another 3 years. Councillors, any comments?
Good idea to make.
Sounds all right.
Okay. All right, so no comment needed. Dave, is the next one is the provision of further bench and improved fencing at the Chequers.
Yeah, well, the request still stands. Where the people are opposed to the want the bench, it's on the other side of the fence, actually in the fish pond play area. Like I said, looking down to the Chequers. So it will be in the fish ponds area just before the mound.
Yeah.
In terms of the fencing that's on here, I can only assume, I've not had a chance to speak to him, but I think the only thing, what he's probably referring to is the fact that we've got a lovely new gate, wooden gate.
Yeah.
We've got pretty grotty mesh fencing for the rest of the area, just blocking it off from the Chequers. So I presume he's talking about maybe replacing that, but I don't know, because I've not spoken to him. But in terms of what I'm requesting, I've been asked if we can have a bench where I've just said.
Yes.
So it's inside the fish ponds area.
Yes.
But facing down the Chequers.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
I know, it sounds odd, that's what I've been saying.
Do we have a cost for that? What do the other benches cost us? And we're trying to move to these, this sort of oak, is it? The Jubilee style.
Yeah,
bench.
we've got one up by the bus shelter at that end of Mill Street, and we've got a couple in the sports ground.
Yeah.
I think they're type Balmoral. I can't remember.
Yeah. Can you remember the price?
I don't carry numbers around in there.
I don't know, sorry.
I mean, I can dig the price out. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to prove up to 500 quid, that.
I mean, is there a genuine demand in the Chequers for this?
There's a group of ladies that knock around together, and they collectively asked for this bench.
They're not the three dog walking ladies, are they?
No, no, I don't think they are.
Hell's Grannies, out of Monty Python, Hell's Grannies. Remember that?
This has been live streamed, Clark.
That's right. People will have recollection.
Well, do you want to put that to a vote then? And then
I'd
perhaps
like to,
what we
yes.
could then do on the fencing is perhaps get a quote for wooden fencing, which I think is always more attractive.
It would look a little wooden picket fence.
A
going on.
wooden
If
picket
we
fence,
get a
and we
wooden
get one from Lightwood. I mean, we put up we've done an awful lot of fencing this year.
I tried to get some picket fencing. It's virtually impossible to get.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, we can wait until it is available.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably isn't the best time of year to be doing it anyway, but the proposition is for up to £500 on a Balmoral style
Yes,
bench, yeah?
yes.
Okay, so you're proposing that, do you need a second?
Yeah, financial.
I'll second that.
So John is
And also,
seconding.
can we just be sure that when we start this bench, the big lorries that come in to do the grass cutting and maintenance can get a turn on there? Because if it's sizing too close to the gate, there's not enough room to.
Oh, yeah, the
turn as
lorries
well.
will have to be,
But it mustn't be so far back, it's on the scheduled action monument.
Oh, no.
That's why I raise it now, Chair, that we can go and look at it after.
So we get a hover one.
Well, you know, there's a strip
Yeah, there is.
there which
Yeah.
is not in the sand, and
Sure.
we just must make sure it's in that strip.
Yes.
Okay, so all in favour then? Yeah, that's fine, very good.
Thank you.
Financial matters then. I now have to not take part, so Russell, would you like to take us?
Okay. And I put it up in the shared drive at about 5 o'clock. Changed it a couple of times since. Did you want me to run through it, Russell?
Is there anything to
No,
continue?
not really. I got a pay rise. I'm 6 months back pay.
Really?
But as usual, RTM for village
Contact.
transfer. There's Tom for the clearing of the bins. There was the final weed kill. There was the external audit fee that was on the last schedule, but I didn't write a check out for some reason. There's the cost of the 2 lots of fencing down by the football, but there's the Lodge Farm Court fencing gate post, and there's also the perimeter of the football pitch that was approved. There's sports ground maintenance, there's pat testing, there's somebody called Phil Howes that wants £25 for a wreath. Sure, I could knock one up for 15.
Yeah.
And MBR printing the village welcome
Yeah,
booklet.
those actually should be printed very soon, so.
Okay, so can you get them to email me an invoice for us?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the payment schedule for this month.
okay. Anybody got any queries?
Happy with that.
Okay, second, if that mover and second.
Yeah.
Okay, RF, unanimous,
Yeah.
Bill can come back.
That does remind me that I will ask Russell to put this on Facebook, but Remembrance Sunday is next Sunday, and the service will be at 9:15 at the War Memorial, and a wreath will be laid on behalf of the parish. It's I've forgotten the name of the gentleman.
Mark and Jill Evans.
Yeah, Mark and Jill Evans, who are both ex-RAF, will be laying the wreath on behalf of the parish. So if you would like to be there, that would be the usual time. And Councillor Hines will be closing the roads.
I'm on my own.
Oh, you doing it?
I will be closing the other.
Fabulous.
Very good.
It's tradition, isn't it?
Keep us all safe.
I'll be there.
This is.
You indeed.
Yes, there is a bugler. Yes, yes, yeah.
Just to remind everybody that the North Street will of course be closed and there'll be a diversion around South Street. If you drive out.
Right. Correspondence received.
Chair, before we leave that, could I just mention something I'd like people to have a look at? Remembrance Sunday is celebrated in all the villages I'm aware. I came through Hartwell last night. I was really taken by what I saw. On the entrance to Hartwell, you've got the church with the soldier against it and a floodlight, which makes it look like the whole wall of the church is a remembrance tribute. But also in the next village road, they've got these rather large poppies on all the lampstands.
They've got the thing.
Sorry?
They've got the thing.
Oh, they do really good. I just mentioned whether we should consider something like that next year.
Okay. Well, perhaps if someone could take a photograph so we know what we're. I'm not quite familiar. But
Yeah,
before they
very
come
impressive.
down, just take a photograph, and then we can consider doing it next year. Perhaps if it's going to be. I've got to tell you, I've got a lot of lampposts in Castlethorpe. And I say that because I have painstakingly counted them and recounted them for this heritage upgrade.
We've doubled up on that.
But by the way, if someone can take that note, I've omitted it because it doesn't fit into the financial aspect of the agenda. So,
Well, no, the poppies.
Right. Last item, other business for noting or including on a future agenda. I'm going to be slightly naughty and say, as I wrote to councillors today, Bandit Food contacted me about starting to put would it be all right for them to put their van outside the village hall? They did do it. Well, they've done it quite a bit in the past, but I imagine during the summer they went off to events and things. And they've asked if they can come back and do it again. I think it's quite well received.
It was,
actually.
yeah, and they had regular customers as well.
So are we all happy for them to do that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we did say that it costs a few quid in electricity to do that. It's probably a few quid more. But even so, I think we decided last time it wasn't worth Steve's time trying
Free
to
food
collect it.
councils.
Yeah.
So
So anyway, I'll let Ed know that that's.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Friday.
So Fridays.
Okay. We'll do beers on the green as well.
Sorry?
What, in the winter?
Why not?
I'm sorry,
It's
do
cold lager.
Beers, cold lagers on the green to compliment that.
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah. Okay.
So the next meeting is the 5th of December, Monday the 5th. We have also got a MALC meeting, I think, this Wednesday, if anyone wants to come to that. That's at Wolverton Community Centre. and a BALC meeting the following week, which is down in Aylesbury, if anyone wants to come to that. But, overcome with enthusiasm on that. Clearly. And I'm just very quickly looking at the diary to see when the I did see a reference in the clerk's report to the community forum that PCSO Dave Huckle was trying to organise. I can't see where it is.
Yes, it was in there.
Well, it's in the clerk's report, Sam. I don't know when it is.
Yeah, I was going to say it's in Hounslow, isn't it?
Yeah, because he said I think it was at the NAG that there would be a forum in Hounslow
Hounslow.
in
Yes, basically, there's
November
just no news on it.
on a Wednesday, but it's said nothing since. And Chris has assembled
I emailed Dave Huckle because I was interested in attending
Yeah.
the community forum on the 12th of October. Got a response saying the first meeting will be on the 24th of November in Hounslow. It was going to suggest a 7:30 start. The publicity I've seen is 7 o'clock, so around that time.
Actually, I see it. Now you say it. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I can see it. I've got it down as a 7 o'clock start, actually. But,
Yeah, I think that's what I saw as well.
Yeah,
I'll
so if
say
I can let-
Is it Dorothy's place?
No, it's the village.
Village Hall.
it. 24th.
Yeah, Hounslow Pavilion.
I'll double check that.
Hounslow Pavilion. So residents, if you have any matters that you would like to discuss in the police forum, any concerns that there are, please do come along on the 24th at Hounslow Pavilion. I think they're going to hold these about 3 times a year, going around the of Hounslow, Pavisham and Castlethorpe, and Hounslow was the first of those. Right, I think that's everything. So on that basis, unless there's any other business, I'll now close part 1 of the meeting. So I'm going to stop the live stream. So thank you to residents who've persevered through this, and please, whatever else you do, consider becoming a parish councillor next May, or clerk, and we hopefully will see you on the 5th of December.